unerased. Lift up like women today. 100 years of pain, suffrage, and sorrow. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's time to honor those erased from her story. It's time to rise and take our place. In this moment, we won't be erased.
Welcome to our Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast of the Public Engagement Initiative, Suffrage, Race, Power, Black Women Unerased. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of SRP Unerased. Capturing gems from the cutting room floor of previous recordings, we're throwing a virtual dinner party hosted by the multi-talented Howard University professor and artist Carolyn Malachi. This episode features insights from Susan Taylor, Essence Magazine editor emerita and CEO of the CARES mentoring movement, artist and cultural worker Aishah Shahidah Simmons, Deon Haywood, Executive Director of Women with a Vision of New Orleans, and Adrienne Shropshire, Executive Director of Black Pack. Come on in and grab a seat at our kitchen table.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Malachi. Welcome to another virtual dinner party, a special Spirit of Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman dinner party. In previous SRP Unerased episodes, we talked to podcast guests about several issues important to Black women, including healthcare, the gender matrix, and our political power. I've been sharing these cutting room floor audio clips with my family and friends around the virtual dinner table. Today, I'm kicking back with my Aunt Susan, my bonus mom Christine, and my friend Corey. And I'm listening to what they have to say. To start, I played this clip of Susan Taylor's comments on AIDS in the 80s.
There was so much fear about the virus when it first emerged in the very early 80s, probably 1980. And I'm so proud to say that 1981, I became editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine, and we were the first national women's publication to do a story on AIDS. One of our editors had a brother who was dying of the disease, and she wrote a first-person account of her experience watching him lose his life. And I want to say, not just think, that it opened the eyes of a large community, a growing community of Black women to the viciousness of the disease and to the help that was needed for those who were struggling with it, because it wasn't so understood back in 1981 when that article appeared.
Now, my Aunt Susan is a retired nurse. I had to ask her about the fear that Susan Taylor mentioned. Was it really that intense?
Yeah, it was. Well, first of all, everyone considered it a gay disease, which of course it isn't. So it took a while for people to really understand you didn't have to be gay to get it. I don't remember really having conversations about AIDS with girlfriends, but we did have conversations at work about it. In the hospital, anybody's secretions, it didn't matter who they were. You had to wear gloves and be mindful of any and everyone. But I can tell you, I didn't notice, like I have in my mind, I can see a patient in my mind, a Black young man in my mind now he was probably in the hospital with pneumonia. I can just remember that people, wasn't going in his room as much as possible. The fear was there.
When I was a kid, I had a pastor who defined fear as false education accepted as reality.
Well, in
Christine's comments
1981,
gave
when
credence
Susan
to that acronym.
made reference to, I was in elementary school, so I didn't really have any particular awareness, I remember, about this disease. It wasn't until maybe almost a decade later that some of the images, the physical images of the disease that have just been etched in my mind. It was through the movie Philadelphia, starring Tom Hanks, who had it. And so physically he suffered major impairments, which, was what caused his law firm to fire him, but also the discrimination that went along with it. And discrimination that was tacked on to different groups in society. And so in his case, he was a homosexual male. And just what he went through, the callousness and just the lack of understanding when it came to this disease, that's what was probably one of the first images that has just laid a major imprint in my mind about AIDS.
Corey chimed in.
I mean, I will, say this every time. I feel like as a woman, as a Black lesbian woman, I have it a lot easier than Black gay men. The gay man is blamed for a lot of things, blamed for AIDS, blamed for all these other things. And I'm just like, you don't have factual proof of that. These different STDs, STIs, HIV, AIDS, whatever, are passed through the straights, the gays, and indifferent. It doesn't matter how you identify. And so that's, what they were dealing with in the 80s. My heart goes out to them. Unfortunately, some of my male gay friends still don't say, yeah, I'm gay. Still don't say, it's not easy to say, hey, let's go to a gay club for some. I had to have a conversation with another one because he was sitting in front of me using terms like talking about somebody and saying they and them. And I said, are those their pronouns? No. Then why do you keep referring to them as that? Sir, I know what you do. I don't care what you do because it has nothing to do with me. But the problem is that even my friends have to live in fear around me, an open lesbian that's been open since they met me, because that is what they've conditioned themselves to do. They don't feel safe sometimes. And unfortunately, we don't make it any better.
With our conversation clearly heading in the direction of intersectionality, I thought about the following comments from Aishah Shahidah Simmons.
I think because of a Black feminist politic for me, and a radical Black feminist politic, that I have personally been in community with straight Black women who identified as feminists. So my lesbian identity was never viewed as they were not afraid of my lesbian identity. They did not allow that identity to create a wedge between them. So that's in terms of just my own personal life and just community, like in terms of Black feminist straight women who have influenced me and who have never asked me to choose between my sexuality and my Black feminist politic. With that shared, I do think that some of the challenges that come up are how lesbian identity can be used as a weapon, so that when women speak out, for instance, against patriarchy, against rape culture, then what gets used is, oh, well, you must be a lesbian, you must hate men. And, the rhetorical response from Black feminists, be it if they're straight or queer, and I'm very clear about the word radical, is that, no, I'm anti-rape. I'm anti the oppression of women, and I'm about the liberation for all people. And so I think that is the work that we have to, that I use in my work and in communication with folks who question my sexuality, as like, is this going to bring us back as a people?
With Aishah's truth spoken, Christine shared her own.
My particular, life experience, to me, I'm not sure. Like when you look at a Venn diagram, I don't see the commonality in those elements. So if you identify as being a homosexual woman or gay, I don't see where the need is to explain yourself and how you feel about other social dilemmas like rape. One doesn't have anything to do with the other. So I think that that's why I was having a hard time explaining it, but perhaps the explanation does lie in some of the very complicated understanding of feminism. And maybe that's just something I need to study up a little bit more on so I can kind of understand more what your perspective is, because I'm sure if that's your perspective, there's so many other people that have that perspective as well. You know, and as an African American woman, I think that we all can say that while my story might not be your story and vice versa, there is a need for me to understand your story and to listen to your story and to listen to your perspective so that we can find common ground and we can grow together.
We all listened as Corey spoke.
So first, for me, I always, anytime I enter a room, I know I have three things on me. I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm a lesbian. And so anytime I enter any space, those are the thought processes that come to my mind. I was on a call with my new coworkers today. I'm the only Black person. It's like 5 people on this call, and I'm the only Black person. I was the only person that when I looked at the screen, I knew I was the gay one. So it's so many different factors that come into play when we say, oh, what's going to bring us back together? Because even though we solve one issue, another issue is going to arise. You know, we might solve the issue of racism, but then we still have the other issues within our communities. You know, I'm a Black woman, but sometimes I feel more comfortable as a lesbian in white spaces than I do in Black spaces. And then when we talk about the feminist piece, just because I say stop raping us, just because I say don't touch me and stop sexualizing me when you look at me, does that mean I don't like men? I don't like being treated like that. Women rape women. Women rape men. For me, it's not about, you know, a male versus woman thing in that sense. It's a sense of, you know, this we deserve to be treated as people, as human beings. And every human being has an equal right to their bodies, to themselves, and to not be touched and harassed. Why is that an issue?
Aishah's audio clip surprised Aunt Susan.
I'm just really surprised that that's such an issue, you know, being a lesbian, and I thought we'd come a little bit further than that, but maybe that's because I don't think in those terms. I just think of people as people, what, you know, whatever their sexual orientation is, it's like, okay, fine. When I'm talking to relatives, like if I'm talking to my sister, she's very, you know, into religion. And just conversations with her, you know, the whole, if you're gay, you're confused about who you are. This day and age, it's like, come on, forget about it. It's not like that. If you want to be religious, God loves, you know, everybody. So that's the way you should be acting.
Okay, this kind of intergenerational dialogue that leads to mutual understanding, there's not enough of it in the world. I'm so glad it's happening here on the SRP Unerased podcast. Our next cutting room floor gem comes from Deon Haywood, who talked to us about a few concerns Black women often have when it comes to the healthcare system.
So I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor, first time being diagnosed in 2016, and then the second time in 2019. It has been difficult for me. Cancer is difficult in itself, and having a diagnosis back to back is difficult. But entering that space with an understanding of the healthcare system and how it has not always been our friend was very difficult to me. And I think when I think about it, it's like, am I going to get what I need? Are they going to see me? Are they going to hold me? Because those are all the things people need. And so that week when George Floyd was murdered was really triggering for me, because I'm depending on a system that has not done well by Black women, has not done well in terms of making sure we have all the information and get everything we need. And in that moment, being who I am, I felt very connected to yet another moment in history that we are being oppressed and murdered. And at this time, I'm fighting for my life. There's been no way for me to separate anything that identifies me as a Black woman, as a Black lesbian, as a mother, as a wife and grandmother in this moment in this country, and while trying to survive. Also struggling with the word survivor when I'm a Black woman surviving in this country and have been doing so for 52 years. Some things were just a struggle, and it was a struggle to put them together, but I knew it was necessary to my survival.
I told my dinner guests that I share some of Deon's reservations when it comes to the healthcare system. Aunt Susan followed up with this.
I really felt sad when I heard her talking about that. And I feel really bad that you feel that way also. I don't know if it's because I was in the nursing field. And, you know, when you go into appointments and stuff, they ask you what you do or whatever. So everybody always knew, or if I knew what questions to ask. But I never had that. I never had that fear. I also don't know if it's depends on what city you're living in either. I really never had a problem with anyone thinking anyone wasn't listening to me. Sometimes you need to take someone else with you to the doctor that, you know, might ask the questions that you're not thinking of.
Then Christine dropped a few gems. She really is a great bonus mom.
I feel bad for Deon's experience and so many others in that situation, because breast cancer or any kind of cancer is such a life-changing event. And you want to make sure your life is in, you know, good hands. But what I can say, I have been really blessed my lifetime. When it comes to doctors, I think I attribute that to, like I said, it's not everybody's experience, but I have always made it a priority for ongoing doctor's visits. And so in doing so, over time, over the years, even with, in some cases, the decades, I have developed relationships with doctors, meaning they know my name. I'm not just a name on a roster. And there's a level of patient care that supersedes what others may get if they hadn't had that doctor or built a relationship with that doctor over time. So that's what I would say. I think it's really, and especially in the African American community, to consider your health as a priority as much as you can possible. And I know everybody has different situations and circumstances, and I recognize that, but I think a lot of times we get so inundated with life and being busy with life, with meetings and children and church and job, and the list goes on, that when we finally put our health on our roster, it's at the end of the list.
When we consider the setbacks Black women have endured for centuries and the critical work left to make things right, we think of policies and immediately the power of our votes. We talked to Adrienne Shropshire, and she discussed all of this within the context of Black women in leadership positions.
What we have seen in terms of women stepping into their own power, right? Stepping into leadership at almost every level of government, and sort of forcing the question, right? We will absolutely see a Black woman governor in the next 2 years. And what we know, right, is that there has never been a Black woman governor in the history of the Republic, but we will absolutely see one within the next 2 years. And that is an important leap. And I think that every time a woman stands up, regardless of her race or ethnicity, and walks into her own power and her own leadership, it creates the space for us to move toward a woman sitting in the Oval Office. And I think that we are much closer to that than we were even in 2016. right? Just being really clear about the importance of electoral engagement, but not to the exclusion of other ways in which we build power. So I think it's both just our history of insisting that this country be better and do better, and then also fully recognizing that we cannot continue as a community and as a country to bear the brunt of the kinds of discriminatory and racist policies that prevent both us and our children from being able to live our full potential, right? To be able to be the people that we know that we were born into this world to be.
Realizing that potential comes with responsibility to our communities. Corey spoke to this.
We'll go vote when we deem it necessary, but we only go vote for the presidential elections. But we're not voting for the people that actually affect our everyday lives, that are on the ground, that are state representatives and things such as that. And so it's like, there are, of course, it's the policies. Of course, the system is not set for us to win. And it's not beneficial to everyone. But I also feel like there still comes a time where we have to do something. We have to work for it. We have to try. And then when we get into those seats, help bring somebody else up. Because then that's my issue. And that's not just when it comes to politics,
That's right.
but in every sense of, leadership. Sometimes we make it and then we forget about the people that look like us.
Still, I could hear the hope in Aunt Susan and Christine's voices.
We're definitely going to have a Black woman governor in the next 2 years. We already have a Black vice president, so we're moving that way. They're afraid. There'll be some people out there trying to stop us, but we're headed in that direction. You're right. Stacey Abrams.
That's my girl. I love Stacey Abrams. She has just been, I just think, anointed to do what she has done. It has just been nothing short of a miracle. But when I listen to Adrienne, talking about, women taking the seat in power, you know what? That is so true. But also, I'm going to add to that. It's not just in these upper levels that you see women taking seats in power. It's right in your communities that you see women taking in these seats of power that were traditionally held by men. Like even within the county that I live in, we have a first African-American female who was our county executive, Angela also Brooks. In the school district that I work in, we've had some before, but we do have another African-American woman who is our CEO for the school system. So really at all levels of life, you see women taking a stand more so than ever in these positions of influence and positions of power. And let's just not forget the position of influence that African-American women have had over the centuries, just in the family alone. That's where it started, just being the glue to the family, especially the African-American family. I am just amazed at what I see my fellow sisters do. It's everywhere. It's this women empower, women in influence. It is seeping in every nook and cranny of our existence, and I just love it.
Amen to that. Thank you, Corey, Christine, and Aunt Susan. Please join us at our next dinner party when we riff off an old saying, if you're Black, get back. Before we close with our culture pop, Hot Cheetos by Boomscat, here's a taste of what's to come in our next episode.
Well, the idea that there is this American dream, this exceptional, everyone has equal opportunity to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps in America, that all it takes is perseverance, dedication, and hard work, is a fallacy, because we are all not starting from an equal place. So if it's a pull up yourself by your bootstraps mentality, everyone needs to fundamentally at least start with a pair of boots.
That was the voice of Vivian Nixon, Executive Director of the College and Community Fellowship. I'm Carolyn Malachi, and this song is called Hot Cheetos by the one and only Peace and Body Roll duo, Boom Scat.
You remind me of hot Cheetos under Rock Creek. You remind me of hot Cheetos under Rock Creek. I was a little girl back then. I was a little girl back when I used to run for the ice cream truck. A little girl back then. You remind me of hot Cheetos under Rock Creek. You remind me of hot Cheetos under Rock Creek. I was a little girl back then. I was a little girl back when I used to run for the ice cream truck. A little girl back then. Whoa, I remember. Your skin was chocolate as the city was. You taste just like young love. Outside till the street lights came on. Didn't wanna come in when mama called. Used to play hopscotch while you rode your bike. Didn't go far, kept you inside. Wasn't sure what I felt, but I knew I was better when I was with you. You remind me of hot Cheetos and Rock Creek. You remind me of hot Cheetos and Rock Creek. I was a little girl back then. I was a little girl back when I used to run for the ice cream truck. A little girl back then. You remind me of hot Cheetos and Rock Creek. You remind me of hot Cheetos and Rock Creek. I was a little girl back then. I was a little girl back when I used to run for the ice cream truck. A little girl back then. Whoa, I remember my first kiss. It was at City Place, back when it was City Place. Held your hand till the lights went off. Didn't wanna go when I got that call. Too old for jump rope and skateboards. Thinking we were grown cause we rode Metro. Wasn't sure what I felt but I knew summer days were better when I was with you. You remind me of hot Cheetos and Rock Creek. You remind me of hot Cheetos and Rock Creek. I was a little girl back then. I was a little girl back when.
All that we've done and all that was won, the wisdom we hold, the stories untold. Stand in our power today. Unerased.
Thanks for listening to Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast made possible by support from Groundswell Fund, TD Banks Charitable Foundation, Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Park Foundation, and anonymous donors. Our theme song, a Black woman's love song, Unerased, features LaTasha Brown on vocals and Glenn Pearson on piano. We had help from Levi Perrin, and special thanks to producer, editor, Carolyn Malachi. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of Suffrage Race Power, Black Women Unerased. Tune in to our Kitchen Table Talks podcast and visit us at srpunerased.com.